Good evening, universe. Tonight I'm going to be doing the mid-year freakout book tag. It's going to be tricky because a lot of these have to do with favorites, but I'm going to do my best to pick them anyway. So let's start off with number 1, the best book I've read so far. So for this question, I choose Lore Olympus Volume 1 by Rachel Smith, as well as 1,000 Steps into Night by Tracy Chee. I just really enjoyed both of these books. Lore Olympus is so beautiful and well done. I love Greek mythology. I love Persephone and Hades. They're some of my favorite characters. And so I really enjoyed seeing this very beautiful kind of take on the gods. As for 1,000 Steps into Night, I picked this up without even knowing what it was about because I enjoyed Tracy Chee's trilogy, which is surprisingly hard to say, The Reader or The Sea of Ink and Gold trilogy so much. I finished reading that this year as well, and so The Storyteller was also in the running for this, but I definitely think 1,000 Steps into Night overtakes it just because it's such a wonderful, contained story. I really loved all of the characters and the plot progression and the ideas in it, and I love that it had footnotes. It just felt like a very immersive world, which I think is really impressive considering that it's a standalone. Question 2 is the best sequel you've read so far this year. So once again, I'm going to give this a two-way tie. We're going to put The Hero of Ages by Brandon Sanderson, as well as The Excalibur Curse by Kiersten White. These are both the third books in their respective trilogies, and I thought that they ended their series quite magnificently. For The Hero of Ages, there was just so much in the first two books that we had to address. So much character development and lore, especially the lore. I love the world building in this series. And I thought The Hero of Ages pulled it off so beautifully in a way that was really satisfying and really intriguing and interesting the whole way. The Excalibur Curse, kind of similarly, it is shorter. Now, the books in the Mistborn series, of which The Hero of Ages is number 3, are very thick. There's like 600 to 700 pages per book, whereas the Camelot Rising trilogy is only, the standard 350-ish per book. There was a little bit less to be resolved in this last book, but I still think that it did a fantastic job of kind of tying together all those character arcs, bringing new life and light to certain characters, and resolving some of the questions that we had in the first book. So these were both really satisfying, and I definitely recommend both of these series. Number 3, a new release that you haven't read yet, but want to. I want to read Misrule by Heather Walter. That's definitely high on my interest gauge. And I'm also going to put volume 9 of Witch Hat Atelier on this. I just picked this up yesterday and I haven't read it yet because I am several volumes behind. I think I'm like on 6. So I still have a little bit of catching up to do, which is perfectly fine because manga goes so quickly and then it takes, a while for the next volume to come out. And I'm also pretty excited. This one's a little bit less new, but Realm Breaker. Am I touching it? Yes. Realm Breaker by Victoria Aveyard. I am a big fan of her Red Queen series, so I'm really excited to see what she's going to do with this new series, but I haven't gotten around to it yet. Number 4, the most anticipated release for the second half of the year. Definitely has to be The Golden Enclaves by Noemi Novik. I absolutely love this series. This is called the Scholomance trilogy. It starts with A Deadly Education. I really love this series so far. The main characters, Elle and Orion, are so funny and interesting, and they have so much depth. They also have a really good relationship with each other, really interesting banter. I love how that has evolved over time. Book 2 also gets into more of the female friendships, which I really enjoyed. And after the ending of book 2, which was a lot of questions that I have about how this is gonna work, I'm really excited. I can't wait. Question 5, the biggest disappointment of this year. Probably the Night Circus. I have had that book on my shelf for ages and I've been excited about reading it. I love circusy type things, and the biggest critique I had heard of the Night Circus is that nothing happens, and I really don't mind books that are like that usually, but I still didn't like the Night Circus, mostly because I didn't really like the characters. If you're gonna have a book where nothing happens, I really feel like you have to make up for that in other ways. Like, the writing is really beautiful and the characters are really interesting. Strange the Dreamer is one of my favorite books, and a lot of people say that nothing happens in Strange the Dreamer, which I disagree with. But so because it was the same kind of criticism, I thought I would still enjoy the Night Circus. But even though the writing was quite beautiful, I didn't like the characters enough, and the setting just wasn't drawing me in. So overall, the Night Circus was my biggest disappointment. I was really expecting to love that book, and I ended up DNFing it instead. 6, the biggest surprise. Since I just talked about a book that was pretty disappointing, I'm going to go ahead and go in a positive direction for this one and say the biggest surprise was Lore Olympus. I did not expect to adore it as much as I did, or to be so ready for the next volume. My wife has been a fan of Lore Olympus for a while, and I never picked it up because it was a webtoon. I don't have anything against self-publishing, obviously, but I don't really like reading things on screens. I'm really bad at focusing on them, and I can't really like immerse myself the same way. So I never really got into it, and I was not prepared to love it as much as I did, which is silly because it has all the things that I love in it. So I'm going to say that was probably my biggest surprise. 7, favorite new author. Once again, I'm going to give this to Rachel Smith because the rest of my favorite reads from this year have been from authors that I already really liked. I guess I would also put Brandon Sanderson in the running for this, but he has a pretty huge body of work, and I've only read one of his series so far, so I'm not sure how he's going to carry off the rest of it. I am definitely interested, but I don't know if I would consider him a favorite yet. While it was really enjoyable, Mistborn, the series that I read from him, it didn't really like blow me away in the same way that Lore Olympus did. So I'm going with Rachel Smith with Brandon Sanderson as a second place runner-up. Number 8, newest fictional crush. I mostly read young adult books, which means that I don't get crushes, because that would be gross and weird. Let me try and think of a book that actually has adult characters. It's hard because I don't really get fictional crushes that much anymore. Maybe Kifri from Witch Hat Atelier. He is smart and mysterious and kind and vengeful, seemingly so far. He's got a lot going on, and I'm really into that. Also, his design is quite cool. Let me see if I can... Yeah, here we go. I guess I'll go with Kifri. Look at how cool he is. I also really like Persephone, once again, from Lore Olympus. She's beautiful. I love how she's pink. I don't know if I would consider her a new fictional crush, but I'm really interested to see where her story goes from here. Yeah, so I guess those are the 2 that I'll put. Newest favorite character, Brush Buddy from Witch Hat Atelier. I love him so much. I don't know if he counts. He's more like a pet. So if he doesn't count, then once again, Hades from Lore Olympus. He's kind of awkward, but also kind of suave. But also he has these brothers who like push him into unhealthy habits. And I think that's really relatable. So I really am enjoying all of that he has going on right now. Also Vin from the First Era Mistborn trilogy. Technically, I was introduced to her last year when I started reading Mistborn, but I definitely liked her a lot more in books 2 and 3, and I felt her struggles were really relatable. So I guess we'll go with Hades and Vin. 10, book that made you cry. All of them, actually. I'm an extremely easy crier, and I pretty much tear up no matter what I'm reading. I'm pretty sure I teared up with books that I DNF'd this year. So for this question, I'm going to change it to book that made me cry the most. And I don't know. Probably The Storyteller by Tracy Chee, and that was definitely up there. Definitely a lot of tears. Lore Olympus by Rachel Smith. There was definitely a really intense scene. A couple of them that made me tear up pretty good. The Hero of Ages by Brandon Sanderson. This made me cry a lot. It's hard to tell because, like I said, I'm a very easy crier, so I don't really keep track of this kind of thing, but nothing really had me like gushing. Like, I think the last book to make me just cry and cry and cry was probably A Sky Beyond the Storm by Sabaa Tahir. Yeah, but I guess those will be my answers. Hero of Ages, Lore Olympus, and The Storyteller. Book that made you happy. All of the Witch Hat Atelier books make me feel very comforted and joyful. I don't often read books that are more feel good. I mean, a lot of the books that make me happy, other people tell me are very dark and sad, like a lot of my comfort reads. For example, one of my comfort reads is Strange the Dreamer, and this confuses people. But yeah, I guess Witch Hat Atelier, just because it's so pretty and I love the characters so much and I love the world building. So that's a book that just makes me, happy. 12. The most beautiful book that you've bought. There were a couple of these. For the Asian Readathon, I bought A Magic Steeped in Poison, and that has such a beautiful cover. I really enjoyed that. I guess the theme of this video is Lore Olympus, because it's beautiful all the way through, baby. I would open this up, but I don't want to accidentally spoil anything. Oh, I'll show you the first couple of pages, just in case. How cool it is. The art style is so distinctive and beautiful. Look at this background. Gorgeous. So probably Lore Olympus yet again. This video has a very distinct theme. I'll talk about something else eventually, probably. 13 books that you need to read by the end of the year. I don't really know how to answer this one. There are a lot of books that I'm really hyped about reading. So the Golden Enclaves, when it comes out, that's definitely like a read it immediately the day that I get it type situation. Also, Lore Olympus Volume 2, that's going to be coming out really soon. I'm definitely going to read that before the end of the year. And then I have some personal reading goals. In order to meet those, I need to read Eye of the World and Uzumaki as well this year, neither of which I've even gotten started on. And I also have a personal goal of getting down to only 10 books on my TBR, my physical TBR. And I feel like that's a distant goal at this point, but I'm about to figure that out in another upcoming video. So we will see on that. And it turns out that was the final question. So thanks for hanging out with me during this tag. I hope your reading year is going good so far. And either way, have a great night, universe.